The real capability is to stop trying to predict the future.
What happened in the past is very much probably going to repeat itself.
But the world is changing so fast today that anything that we have built up, our sets of beliefs around the world, which are based on the past, are not necessarily going to be relevant for the future.
Lifespan of a skill these days is actually 2.5 years.
How can together humans plus AI create more, be more? But humans are first. Humans are first by complementing AI.
What actually distinguishes a high-functioning individual who is able to use AI effectively? So essentially collaborate with AI.
You are using the AI as a tool to think better.
Is this sort of a skill or access to information that is helping people to kind of understand where things are going and then thrive and take advantage of the opportunities?
Everyone has pretty much the same information, or we can get access to the same information. So it is how we process that, and that is a particular attitude of how it is we think about that. So you mentioned the word thriving, and my most recent book is called Thriving on Overload, and it's almost exactly that point. And whilst the book is about how do we deal with unlimited information in when our cognition is finite, it actually is almost a futurist manifesto, because that's what the role of the futurist is. In an earlier version of what I was planning is to make that book, the working subtitle was to be How to Be Your Own Futurist. And in a way, we all need to be our own futurists to be able to look at the signals, to be able to see what's happening, and to be able to plan. If we are planning beyond next week, even just for next year and beyond, be it for ourselves, for our family, for our children, for our business organization, we need to be looking at all the information, these signals, as you call them, and to make sense of them, to build a model of the world, seeing the world as a system, which enables us to make decisions which can, guide, nudge things the way that we want. So this is as much as everything a mindset and a set of practices. So what's called foresight. There's a whole array of different methodologies and approaches and ways of doing this. And these are all essentially ways of picking out between the directions that we can see and the uncertainties, and how these are combined to be able to see what are pathways that could unfold to worlds in the future. We can't predict, we can't know for sure which way they will go, but when we can understand how the world works, in a way, the system which underlies these unfolding pathways, then we can take actions that put us in an advantageous situation, if some of these pathways unfold, or potentially to help to shape those pathways if we want to. We have some futures that we prefer over other futures.
Mm-hmm. And from what I'm hearing, it is definitely possible to develop this type of mindset. So it's not deterministic. You don't either have it or not, right? It's probably not that easy. But if I were to start today of thinking about how can I develop this mindset, what is the first thing I can do, take a step towards developing it and having this so-called foresight?
Well, there's a lot of wonderful books and courses, I think, which I think are helpful, because this has a well established methodologies. There's over 50 universities around the world that have programs of foresight in various guises. This is a well established discipline. So we do have many who have come before us to be able to learn from. So I think that's one thing, to be able to do that. But one of the, I suppose, well, in a way, a methodology, but also I suppose, a frame of mind is scenarios. So scenario planning is a very well-established methodology used by, many of the largest organizations in the world. But I always say that, in fact, what is more important is scenario thinking. So scenario planning is to say, okay, well, we can't predict the future, so we'll build a number of possible worlds that all could happen. And as leaders, we need to be clear that that these set of scenarios are ones that we all need to take into account into what we are planning, because that's the way you build scenarios, is that that they are all possible. But the real capability is to stop trying to predict the future
Mm.
and to be able to be open to say, I can see that that can happen. I can see that happen. To start to build this frame of scenario thinking of essentially, all right, I've got an opinion. Now let me try to find arguments against my current opinion so that I actually think, well, all right, well, maybe I'm right, but maybe I'm wrong.
Mhm.
And you're starting to build multiple ways of thinking. So Gregory Bateson, the wonderful philosopher and anthropologist of the last century, said that knowledge comes from a single perspective, wisdom comes from multiple perspectives,
Mm.
and that's what we need to bring to bear is this multiple ways of thinking, these multiple possibilities in our mind, and that's when we can start to then plan for things which can chart a positive future.
Mhm. So one thing that is interesting for me right now is we build scenarios based on the information that we already have or based on things that happen to us in our life. So essentially, as you said, we're very biased as we think about the future, right? Because we think what happened in the past is very much probably going to repeat itself or maybe take a different variation in the future. But another way that we build scenarios is based on the information that we're getting today. And I think this is again linking to the your book, Thriving on Overload, which is in this case, there is so much information nowadays that it is very hard for a person to, if they're not thinking about their background and their stories and the things that they have, mental models they already have, then trying to look at the information that's available and existing to use that as basis to build scenarios for the future. That is very difficult in itself because we are drowning in that information and we don't really know how to meaningfully distinguish between information that might be accurate and that might be false. So, again, maybe referring to your book a little bit, how can someone distinguish what information they can grab onto to really think about building scenarios for the future, this multiple perspectives, as you said?
We'll just taking back. So the scenarios is one application of this, but I mean,
Mm,
just going back to
right.
the framework of my book, Thriving on Overload. That's the sense. I started. I first wrote about thriving on information overload back in the 1990s, and
Mm.
of course, we have rather more information today than we did then.
Yep.
And in coming years, we'll have even more. So, but this is a perennial. This has always been the case. We've always had more information than we can make sense of. So, in the book, I lay out what I describe as the five powers for success. So, the first one is critical is purpose, and saying, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to know? Who do I want to be? Well, what serves my purpose in my organization, in my life, in my family? And being that clarity, you need that clarity because otherwise you have nothing to distinguish whether information is relevant or not. The second power is framing. And this is the process of building frameworks for how all of that information comes together. So a lot of my work is in building visual frameworks, both many that I share with the world or sometimes, for executive teams and boards on thinking through their issues, where saying, what are the key issues? How do they relate? And there's a number of different structures, and there's a lot of research which shows that using these visual representations, or well, they're not always visual, but they often very helpful to be, where we are framing. We are literally saying, this is how all of these information, these ideas, these events relate. This is the connections between them. This is the structure. This is a framework which allows you to make sense, which means that you can see when any new information comes in. I can see where this fits in the framework, or it doesn't fit. And that means that I need to evolve my framework. The third power is that of filtering. And this is a simple, yeah, and as you point out, when we are have a barrage of information, and it's really be able to develop, and based on our purpose and our frameworks, we can then far more quickly discern, does this information serve any purpose at all to me, or
Mhm.
is it something that I should consider? So that filtering is just that first pass where you can be far more adept at being able to say, this is relevant, this is not. And I
Mhm.
think that this is something which we don't really develop as capability. The fourth power is that of attention. You know, what I describe as allocating your attention with intention. And there's different types of attention in terms of when we are, scanning for information, when we are, assimilating that, pulling that into our frameworks, being able to do deep dives, and indeed being able to take the time out for because our brains get overloaded with information. One of the most valuable things we can do is to be in nature and away from device information. And the fifth one is synthesis and pulling that all together. So those are the fundamental capabilities in being able to flourish in a world where there is unlimited information. And
Mhm.
yeah, of course, being able to build scenarios for the future is one outcome from that. But it is simply being able to make decisions, to be able to understand what's going on, to be able to prioritize, be able to act in a world where we very much are overloaded.
Yeah. Just to give you an example to elaborate on this further, when we talk about AI, how it impacts the labor market of the future or the labor market of today, it changes month to month, and the impacts just you cannot really see them immediately. It takes time for them to land, but at the same time, it's very difficult to think about what am I going to do in the next 5 years or in 5 years, in 10 years as a professional, as someone who's working in a specific field, right? So when you're thinking from that lens, from that perspective, in terms of purpose, yes, you might have, again, a general view, but how do you reconcile this fast changing labor market and your vision of becoming someone in the future?
So, that's a very, very pertinent question, of course. And I think the pace of change which we are experiencing today, as you say, in the nature of work is truly unprecedented. We've
Mhm.
had many big shocks to who we are, of course, in wars and pandemics and so on in the past. But the pace of change engendered by AI today is truly, without any precedent. So these are different times for us to adjust to. And I guess the the way I would frame it is our purpose can often be framed as learning.
Mhm.
And that is the key capability, saying I need to, my purpose is to learn about whatever you care about and
Mhm.
to get better at that learning. And is where, of course, AI can play a role in that. So it's trying to move to that higher level. So your purpose is what it is you want to achieve. The how you want to achieve it, that is changing because
Mhm.
maybe the nature of jobs are changing, the nature of
Yeah.
industries are changing. And so it's in a way more or less the purpose as who what impact you want to have as to the tactics, I suppose, of what job I should be looking for or training for or developing. And I
Yeah.
think this, part of again that purpose comes back to your passion.
Mhm.
What is it that you are best at? This classic thing is this combination of what impact do you want to have? What are you good at, or what do you feel you're good at? What are you passionate about? And then you're seeking to find that intersection, and that is that discovery process that I referred to. And that and the other, of course, intersection of all that is what the world will pay for,
Mhm.
and that where that is changing as well. So part of what you need to then take in information you're taking in is, well, I need to be aware of how jobs are changing, what people are hiring for. But at the heart, that comes down, this is the impact I want to have. And then
Mhm.
this is how I learn. And in that, I am in that spirit of growing to be the person who can have that impact in a rapidly changing world.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that is very profound. So having the understanding yourself, kind of understanding where your passions lie, and then thinking about this as I am going to continuously learn and develop on the way to getting to wherever I'm thinking of getting, or even if I'm there already, um, things are changing so fast. You still need to be on the lookout of how things change and learn with as you develop and grow.
And just on the point there, that's where the openness is so
Yeah.
critical, because you need to be looking out for the change, because the change is happening, and so they need to be always sensitized, and not, many people have a default view that, all right, the world is static. I'm worried that the world is changing. But once you start to actively look for those changes, you can start to use that to inform,
Mhm.
your role in the world.
So, when it comes to AI and how it impacts the future of work, we have, for example, we have David Otter of MIT who talks about how automation and augmentation, how they're both impacting the labor market, but differently. So we have automation, which is impacting the lower and middle skill jobs, and mostly we see that we have less of that. So there's hollowing of the middle class, so to speak. And then we have augmentation, which is actually benefiting those with high skilled jobs. Do you have a sense of how do you think AI will be impacting jobs of the future? Do you think that it's going to be this higher skilled jobs will be more in demand and the augmentation will only benefit them? Or do you think it is going to completely change and we can't really tell how?
So Tom Davenport, one of the top thinkers and researchers in business technology, just in this last week wrote a paper called "Can We Predict the Impact of AI on Jobs?" And
Mm.
his conclusion was no. And
Yeah.
I would tend to agree with that. But that, having said that, I do have uh, some very strong views.
Mm,
And so, just a few things to pick up on what you were saying. I think
mm,
first of all, yes, there absolutely is automation. There are jobs which have been done by humans in the past, and this is the history of humanity. We have always had machines of various kinds to do human work, and that is happening and increasing. We also have augmentation, as you mentioned, where people who have done work in the past now have tools where they can do it faster, better, and expand not just their productivity, as in doing what they did before, but to doing more than they ever did before. One other overlay there, which is I think is critically important, is that this fundamentally changes the structure of work and organizations. And I think what is often, there are a number of fallacies in the way in which people are talking about AI and jobs. The first one is that work of tomorrow, tomorrow will be similar to today. Either will just be replaced or augmented. We
mhm,
will have completely new types of work. We will have completely new ways that people collaborate. The nature of organizations is changing. So startups have a very different structure than they did before. We're seeing that now we have many new ways to configure organizations, where instead of now, okay, we have, we could have a human, and then we could have an AI agent, and the AI agent replaces human. It's not going to be like that at all. In fact, we're going to reconfigure so that we have skilled uh, humans that have perspective, who are as part of a system interacting with AI continuously through their jobs, for a completely configuration of what I call a humans plus AI organization.
mm,
Some organizations will try to simply just tack on AI. Others will evolve from scratch, or start from scratch, or evolve into ones where it is completely fluid, where you're applying the talents of your people in ways that don't fit into a job or a job description, but are applying their talents to complement the AI and the other people to be able to create outcomes far more effectively before. So the nature of organizations will change. And the other fundamental fallacy, which is underlies so much of the discussion around AI and jobs, is that the economy is and the demand for goods and services and jobs is basically static. And if we have a job which is used to be done by a human, which is now done by AI, then basically that role is gone. Whereas humans have unlimited desire.
Hmm.
We want more. We want better products. We want more services. We want to be supported in what we do. We seek we seek abundance in our own lives. We want to create create more. And so even as we augment and automate people, at the same time, we want more. So there are very few people today where at 5 o'clock they say, I've done everything I need to do today.
Yeah.
And, and I don't need to do anything else at all until I go back to work.
Hmm.
And so that is the thing. There's we That's why we've got busier and busier as I've had more and more automation, and we will have more and more demand on us and our ability to create more for organizations, for society, for the what are essentially insatiable demands of humans. And we could,
Mm.
debate whether we should have limit our desires, but I think it's quite human, and that's just
Mm.
something where I think that we will have more demand. And the other one other thing which many people neglect is that in the all of the developed world, populations are decreasing. So
Yeah.
even if we do automate many jobs, then there are, in fact, we do need a lot more work. And in fact, still today, many industries around the world in many countries, they are experiencing skill shortages.
Yeah.
So I think that these are some of the things which we need to be taken into account when we
Hmm.
think about the impact of AI on jobs.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. The factor of aging population definitely kind of balances it out because we're going to have less workforce and we're going to have. So, but in essence, even considering all of that, we're still going to have a completely different labor market in the future. What would you recommend someone who is right now in an either early stage career or low or middle skilled kind of sort of jobs that are kind of might experience layoffs in the next decade? What would you recommend them to start thinking? How should they start thinking about their positioning themselves?
So, as I mentioned before, this learning to learn is
Mm.
absolutely critical capability. So we all need to learn. There's nobody who will not need to learn new skills during the course of their career. And so we need to get better at learning. And we have many
Mhm.
tools to do so. I think these are now really useful skills. So I think there's this attitude and capability of learning, and learning to learn is applies across the board. There are there are roles where they truly are not going to disappear
Yeah.
indefinitely. Those include care roles where, aging population, we still want human connection. Just the nature of people, what people want. We will have care roles. A lot of the trades, in terms of it's, there might be some point where a robot is able to do plumbing or electrician work, but that is a
Mhm.
very long way away.
Mhm.
And I think that but I do what is certainly relevant is to be thinking about your current role, your current skills, and coming back to what we talked earlier about what impact do I want to have? What am I
Yeah.
passionate about? What are my skills? But understanding also the evolving world of what people are prepared to pay for. And
Mhm.
so I think and that's one of the reasons when I said everyone needs to be their own futurist, is everyone needs to be thinking about, well, how will this unfold? And I would warn against, looking at all the doomsayers and getting very worried. I
Yeah.
think that worry is never a useful thing. I think we
Mhm.
need to be concerned. We absolutely all need to be very concerned about what is happening. But that concern should lead to that self reflection. and there's looking to what is changing into that developing of, what is happening. So essentially, there's three layers to how we need to respond to this massive dislocation. And
Mm,
those are individual, organizational, societal.
mm,
So, yes, as an individual, we do have responsibility for ourselves to consider how is the world changing? Who do I want to become? What impact do I want to have? And how can I develop myself so that I can do that rather than just sitting and seeing the world change or waiting for a handout?
mhm,
Organizations need to have the responsibility to create a prosperous future of work for many reasons. And I would, can I could spend a lot longer on the I suppose the self-serving as well as the broader reasons why leaders should be building organizations that basically build more skills, build more capabilities, and build well-rewarded work. And I think that
mhm,
amongst other, just one of the many reasons being that if they do that, they will attract the most talented people and they will outperform their rivals. And there's societal, where governments, NGOs, institutions need to be helping to create the structures where, yes, there will be dislocations. We need to understand how do we support people through those, enable those skills and that learning, this re-education, the transition, which is fundamental. So all of those are essential at the individual, organizational, and the societal level. But
mhm.
to your question, I think as we do have responsibility as individuals as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's fascinating. One of the things that you talk about that I find super interesting is human plus AI. So kind of we talk about augmentation. I think this is one way of augmenting a human being, right? So you kind of work with it efficiently and productively. At an individual level, what actually distinguishes a high functioning individual who is able to use AI effectively? So essentially, like collaborate with AI.
So the humans plus AI thesis is simply that this is a unique time. We now, as humans, have something which is somewhat akin to us in intelligence. We can have conversations with it. It can do things. It is that changes the nature of what it is to be human.
Mhm,
And so, rather than saying this is looking at this as a competition, it's saying, well, we are different.
mhm,
The AI is being built to mimic us, but uh, it is different to us. And so humans plus AI is around saying, how can together humans plus AI create more, be more? But humans are first. Humans are first by complementing AI. And so as individuals, I mean, the first thing absolutely is mindset, as in this attitude of I'm not going to be scared of it. I'm not going to say this is a abomination. Um, we can have views around AI, but the reality is it exists. Humans are inventors, and we have invented, and we've invented this, and we will continue to invent. This is something which is in and of the world. We may, irrespective of our judgments of that, it is something which is a human product. It is part of us, and it is in the world. So I think we need to take an attitude of saying, how can it assist me in my purpose and what is I want to achieve?
mhm,
So that it takes that mindset, and it is always in the interaction with AI, it is always around human first. So there's again any number of YouTube videos, courses, all sorts of wonderful things which provide fundamental understanding. But the only way to be able to develop those skills is to use it, to try it, and to try different things. And that is the nature of how everyone I know who is very competent in augmenting themselves with AI is because
mhm.
they're trying stuff all the time and seeing what works and be able to use it in different ways, and including in there many people use that in support in their personal lives, getting input on questions, and others, use it very much in work context. And but and also with due caution,
Yeah.
never taking it as gospel, keeping our sanctity of our own mind. I have a framework where I look at the 8 levels of cognitive impact of AI.
Mm.
Uh, and the highest level is where it enhances our cognition, as in after we use AI, we're able to think better.
Yeah.
The bottom one is cognitive corruption, where it
Mhm.
actually, you know, gets us to lose track of reality.
Yeah.
And we also have this idea of cognitive erosion, where if we just basically say, "All right, I'm going to get AI to do everything I did before," we start to get dumb because we're not applying it. And there's many other sort of more passive ways to use it, and many ways to use it in ways that augment us, enable us
Mm.
to think better and smarter and so on. So one of the in that those levels of cognitive impact of AI framework, I think it's worth thinking, just asking that question. At what level am I playing? Am I getting
Mhm.
dumber because I'm continuing outsourcing stuff? Am I
Mhm.
just sort of using it as a productivity tool, which is fine? Or am I actually getting better results? Am I thinking better? Am I getting sharper in my thinking? Because back to scenario planning, in fact, that's something which AI is extraordinarily good at. The nature of what it has seen much information, and it is able to generate, saying, "Oh, well," and is able to challenge you. And that's one of the wonderful things you can do. It says, you can say to it, AI, "This is what I
Mhm.
think is most likely to happen. Give me an argument as to why I'm wrong." And
Mhm.
that's useful in itself. And then we say, "Tell me another thing which is different from what I expect to happen, and give me the reasons why that would happen." And that is part of opening your mind, of thinking more broadly. There's many approaches like that, where you are using the AI as a tool to think better.
Mhm. Yeah. And an important thing here to highlight is the difference between human and AI. One of the differences, obviously, is agency. So AI doesn't have agency. We do, hopefully, if we don't give it up, right? So it's super important as you are working with AI to maintain the agency and to use it not as a master, but as a tool that's going to give you access to certain amounts of information, but then also being a bit cautious, as you said, when you are looking at the output that it's providing and not taking it at face value, which is, I think, is super important. Or I think in one of your interviews, you also talked about how using AI can potentially give you productivity results, but then as you're using it, you either augment yourself, your skills, or you basically are doing the cognitive offload, which eventually will be very damaging to your own thinking and ability to think critically.
Yeah, that's so back from the dawn of generative AI, my first thought is what isn't human is intention.
Mm.
What do I want to achieve?
Mhm.
And then you can say, well, AI could assist me. But exactly as you said, the agency, the intention is human. And then
Mhm.
the AI is a tool. It is something which can assist us, and we need to be judicious in how we use it, and that it does indeed, keeping clear on our intention, what it is we want to achieve, that it is something which is worthwhile, but then
Mhm.
using that as simply as one of the things which can assist us in being able to do that.
What do you think is a bottleneck of using AI effectively? Is there anything that stands out for you specifically?
The well, the bottleneck is always human cognition, as in,
Mm.
you know, the human brain is the most marvelous thing in the known universe, but it still is limited in a whole variety of ways, in wonderful ways.
Right.
We need time off. We need to, and we there's only so much we can deal with at any point in time, and that's I think we just need to you know acknowledge that. So that is a fundamental bottleneck. Humans are finite beings,
Mhm.
and the but I guess what I always point to is going to the meta level, going to the higher level, as in it's always that learning about learning.
Mm.
It's just you want to learn, but also you need to learn how to learn. In terms of using AI, it's around, well, learning how to use the AI better, or in fact getting a little bit more, not just chatting with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, but in fact being able to start to build your own simple tools, and learning how
Mhm.
to do that becomes more effective.
Mhm.
So there is so there is getting beyond the bottlenecks, the amplification starts to be, well, I think that I can see that there is a simple tool, which might be as simple as creating a GPT or a gem, which is
Mhm.
essentially you design and refine something, which is a task which you can do repeatedly, and so you're learning how to do that, or being able to learn how to build a tiny piece of software, which you almost these days, if it is very simple, you can actually just say, "This is what I want," and it will do it for you reasonably well. And
Mhm.
then learning how to do that. So it's kind of like, or how do you always go to the higher level of amplifying the way in which the AI can amplify you?
Mhm. It sounds to me that if we were to have one takeaway from this conversation is the most important thing if you want to look into the future and try to predict what the future will be is you won't be able to do that, obviously, but then the you can be effective if you start learning how to learn and learn quickly is probably one of the takeaways from this conversation. And I think um, someone from Stanford mentioned that lifespan of a skill these days is actually 2.5 years, meaning that within the next 2.5 years, the skill that you learn today will be obsolete. So, yeah, I think is it fair? Or is there anything else, any takeaway from our conversation today that you would say that's important to remember?
I believe the name of the podcast is Meta Self, and I think that
Mhm.
that's, in a way, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We are needing to go above to look at, who are we? What is
Yeah.
the what is what is myself? What are the things which I can do? How can I grow in a rapidly evolving world? And we need to be going above to look at the skills, the capabilities, the becoming, you know, and this is, that's what humans are. We are becoming always. And now in a world which is accelerating, we need to become faster. We need to use our human skills in this world to be able to continue and accelerate our own process of becoming who we can be.
With that, thank you so much, Ross. I appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me today.
It's a real pleasure.
If you're ready to make that 1 degree shift towards massive transformation, then hit that subscribe button and join the MetaSelf community because sometimes one idea is all that takes for a breakthrough.